From Captivity to Freedom, subtitled I Didn't Know I Was Deceived, written and read by Grace Josie. Chapter 6. This chapter begins with a quote from T.S. Eliot, Four Quartets, and it reads, "We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know that place for the first time." When I graduated from high school, I wanted to study theology at our church educational institution, Ambassador College in Pasadena, California. Campuses were also located in Texas, where Landon attended, and also in England. I was accepted. At the time, my biggest dream was to marry a church minister and serve alongside him at a local church. In August of 1977, I made the trek by car to Ambassador with several other students from Ontario, Canada, who were also attending. The church heavily subsidized the costs of students attending Ambassador by covering a portion of tuition and fees. It was their way of investing in the development of future church leaders. Had they not provided this money, I would never have been able to go. To cover my room and board, I applied for a government student loan, and I managed to save $800 of my own money before leaving for my freshman year. The money I saved came from babysitting and a variety of summer jobs I held during high school. One summer, I worked at the Big K, a grocery store about 1 mile from our home. First, I was put in the deli department. My favorite task there was making the sandwiches. I loved loading on the egg salad, tuna salad, and other meats to make a thick sandwich. People loved my sandwiches and told me so. Soon I was given a small raise and promoted to cashier. That's when the sugar shortage hit Ontario, and there was a run on sugar. People stood in lines for 20 or 30 minutes waiting for me to check out their 50-pound bags of the sweet staple. Some people bought 5 or 6 bags. Lines for the cashiers went all the way back to the back of the store. The 2 summers before I graduated from high school, I started my own little house cleaning business. I'd ride my bike back and forth from our house into town where I had several regular clients. The total miles I put on my bike averaged about 14 per day. I was young and in great shape. The physical stamina required for this kind of work came easily. Along with my store-bought clothes, hand-me-downs, and outfits from the church's clothing exchange, I had packed my suitcase for college with several items I sewed for myself. An emerald blue polyester pantsuit, several pairs of slacks in various colors with matching blouses, a few casual shirts to go with my blue jeans, several skirts, 2 dresses for special occasions, and a formal gown in a light blue floral cloth with a flounced collar. To me, sewing was not only a fun hobby, but a way to be thrifty. I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I left home for college. I was a farm girl going to live in the middle of a gigantic city, Pasadena, the city of roses, right in the middle of Los Angeles County, with a population of over 7 million. But I believed that my plans to serve God in His church meant that He would guide and protect me. I got very homesick just a few weeks into the semester, but I reached out to Mr. Anthony, a minister who was on the faculty who also knew my family. He prayed for me, and I started to feel better. Soon I was enjoying meeting new people, going to class, and participating in campus community activities. We had dances, clubs, special dinners, and lots of other opportunities for social interaction. One day, as I was walking towards my dorm, Terrace Villa, a beautiful mansion transformed into dormitory rooms on the upper campus, I spotted a tall, handsome young man wearing a shiny blue-green polyester shirt. I said under my breath, "Wow, I'd love to meet him." Later, when I went to eat lunch at the Ambassador Student Center, I couldn't find anyone to sit with, So I just went to an empty table and started eating my broccoli. As I chewed, I looked up and saw this same young man walking towards me with a tray of food. My heart skipped a beat. He was so handsome. He introduced himself. "Hi, I'm Les Josie. I see you don't have anyone to sit with. Can I join you for lunch?" I swallowed hard and managed a smile. "Sure," I responded. Several of Les's friends joined us for lunch soon after he sat down, and as the weeks began to pass by, I found that I enjoyed hanging out with his circle of friends. Les seemed to be the leader of the pack. One day, Darren, a friend of Les's, asked me out to dinner. I agreed, but soon he wanted to do everything with me and wouldn't let me interact with the other guys. He was a very emotional person, and that made me even more uncomfortable. I'd never seen a grown man cry before, and he cried a number of times in my presence. I felt smothered, so I went to talk with Les about it. I figured that since all the guys in Les's group looked up to him, that he could probably help me out. And he did. We were sitting in the lounge of his dorm on a couple of easy chairs. Leaning towards me, he made eye contact. "Grace, you can go out with anyone you want to. Don't let Darren control you. Just tell him no." He looked down to smooth out his tie. "How about I take you on a date to the Queen Mary? It's in Long Beach, just about an hour from campus." Shifting with excitement, I responded, "Yes, I'd like that, a lot." I didn't know it at the time, but Les had been attracted to me from the first day he'd laid eyes on me. He was very interested in dating me, just as I was interested in dating him. That weekend, Les stopped by my dorm to pick me up for our first date in his faded blue Chevy Nova. We drove down Highway 101 toward Long Beach with the windows down. It was a beautiful California day, low humidity and 75 degrees with a slight breeze and not a cloud in the sky. I was impressed that Les had a car of his own. Most of the guys on campus did not have cars. It was not a fancy vehicle by any means, but Les was proud of it because he had rebuilt it with the help of some family members. Les was easy to talk with and had a farming background like I did. He grew up on the coast of North Carolina on his granddaddy, Ozell's, farm. The fields butted up to the canals and channels of Ward Creek, a tributary of North River, which eventually connected to the Atlantic Ocean. Ozell grew corn, soybeans, and potatoes. Les was a recognized leader around campus. He was president of his Ambassador Spokesman's Club, a group that practiced public speaking. The group, as well as the minister in charge, evaluated each speech. Everyone had to offer a positive and negative critique. Members gave a speech one or more times per month. Subjects for the speeches were assigned by a church curriculum that centered around topics such as masculinity, preparing for marriage, how to be a good husband, father, and church leader, and about world events fulfilling the prophecies in the Bible. Ministers in charge of the club would give a brief teaching about one of these topics before the speech portion of the meeting began. Les also participated on the Ambassador Special Events Committee that organized college dances, ski trips, beach trips, and volunteering for events such as the Rose Parade concessions. Ambassador College was just a few miles from the Rose Bowl. During my freshman year, the committee decided Stairway to the Stars would be the theme for the year-end gala dance. Les was in charge of the decorations. His team built a spiral staircase and placed it in the middle of the Ambassador Student Center where the dance was held. The bottom step was large enough to house the entire band. They hung glow-in-the-dark stars from the ceiling and attached them to the walls and spiral stairs. As Les and I danced together, I was his date, the effect was dazzling, especially when the lights were turned down low and the disco ball was turned on. In addition to his full class load, Les also worked part-time as a security officer for the campus, doing patrols to ensure campus safety. He was trained in how to do a citizen's arrest if needed, and he actually did arrest a man who came on campus and assaulted one of the female students. I was impressed with the authority of his position and how handsome he looked in his uniform with his badge and hat. He wore a huge belt that had keys to every door on the campus hooked to it. From the belt, a heavy chrome flashlight hung that could be used as a weapon to immobilize an attacker if needed. He also drove the patrol car around the campus grounds to make sure everything proceeded as it should. The car even had lights and sirens. But let's go back to the story of our first date. As we drove toward Long Beach, my heart was filled with excitement and joy to be alone with Les. And I was completely fascinated with the Queen Mary ocean liner. As we walked the decks, I imagined what it might have been like for my parents as they crossed the Atlantic in the Aquitania and Volendam. Since the ships were similar and built by the same company, the Cunard White Star Line. The stairways aboard the ship were opulent, to say the least. They were covered with beautifully designed carpet, and the railings were made of ornately carved wood. The twin staircases at the entrance were grand and elegant. I was intrigued by the history and design of this massive ship. Les had visited it before, so he enjoyed showing me around. On the way home, we stopped for dinner at a restaurant near campus, the Spanish Inn, my first Mexican food. As we sat across from each other over beef and bean burritos, making eye contact, asking each other questions, and telling stories about our lives, I decided I wanted to spend much more time with Les. His brown eyes were so vibrant with life. When he winked at me, he had a quirky way of raising his left eyebrow that made my heart swoon. And he was so witty and funny, something my soul found completely refreshing. I was 18 and Les was 20. He was a junior and I was a freshman. Les grew up in a blended family. His parents divorced before his 5th birthday, and then his mother remarried shortly after that. His step-grandfather and grandmother, Azelle and Pearl, were members of the WCG and lived next door. They took Les with them to church and taught him the church's beliefs. He also spent time with his maternal grandmother Naomi's family and sometimes attended church with them at the Sea Level Missionary Baptist Church. But his main religious upbringing was with Azelle and Pearl in the WCG. We began dating steadily during October of my freshman year. The streets circling the Ambassador College campus were great places to walk and talk. Lower Arroyo Park, through which the San Andreas Fault line ran, was one of our favorite places to go. Decked in our athletic clothes, we dare each other to race up Arbor Street on the way back from the park. It was one of the steepest streets I'd ever climbed in my life. Interesting, Les and I could pace each other pretty well. At least he let me believe I could run as fast as he could. We always seemed to make it to the top at the same time. I was pretty proud of that. The college had a lot of social activities, and I was always Les's date. When his spokesman's club held a special dinner, I got to watch Les interact with his club mates, listen to him speak, and be evaluated by the group. I was impressed. One day at church, an announcement was made about several students who had just gotten baptized. Les and I were seated side by side in the balcony section of Ambassador Auditorium, where church services were held. The seats were made of plush gold fabric, and the carpet was a deep crimson. Shifting my gaze from the gold leaf acoustical tiles that lined the ceiling, I turned to Les. I was baptized a few months ago, and I am so grateful to have the Holy Spirit leading me. It was the most important decision I have ever made. Les leaned towards me, resting his elbow on the armrest. I was baptized just last year in one of the indoor pools on campus. It was a special day for me, but what surprised me about the experience was that when Mr. Goodall was about to dunk me, he said, "Les, I'm not baptizing you into any church, but into God's family." Is that what the minister said when you were baptized too? Yes, that really puzzled me. Is there more than one Church of God? I don't know for sure. WCG teaches that they are the only true church. Do you believe that's true? Les asked. Of course I do. And I'm excited to be learning more about God here at college so I can grow in my understanding of life. Me too. I think I want to become a minister after I graduate. At least I'm considering it. That's why I'm majoring in theology. Hey, that's my major too. Wow, we have similar interests, don't we? His shoulder touched mine. My heart soared as I felt the brush of his sleeve and caught the scent of his cologne. I thought, he's irresistible. He might be my dream come true. My mind raced ahead. Not only is Les baptized, but we share similar goals. I wonder if this is going to lead to marriage. Since he is baptized and has ministry in his plans, then he's got to be a good guy to date, I thought. Les continued, I think majoring in theology is a great choice, so I can help with God's work. But if working in the ministry doesn't pan out, then I'll still have a good education. The classes I'm taking are preparing me for any kind of job that has to do with leading people. I'm learning a lot about communication, especially through my public speaking class and spokesman's club. That's a really sought-after skill, especially in sales. We continued to chat about our classes and goals as Les walked me back to my dorm so I could change out of my church clothes. We planned to go for a walk later that afternoon at the Lower Arroyo Park and then to dinner at the Ambassador Student Center. Several Saturdays later, Les asked me at breakfast in the Student Center, do you want to go to the Norton Simon Museum with me this afternoon? It's the museum across the street from campus on Colorado Boulevard. I've never been. It would be interesting to learn about art history together. The grounds are beautiful, I've heard. We'd have to miss church, though. It's only open the same hours that services are held today. Would you be okay with that? The discount tickets I have are only good for today. My heart began to pound. I stammered, I don't know. We're supposed to be in church, I cut into a pancake on my plate, but then set my fork and knife down, waiting for him to respond. His voice was steady. Yeah, but isn't it okay to miss every once in a while? I mean, you don't think that God expects you and me to be in church every time the doors are open, do you? I felt challenged by his request and his question. Well, obeying God by keeping the Sabbath is being obedient, and I don't want to compromise and do something wrong. Les toyed with his scrambled eggs and then looked up again. Our eyes met. But Grace, going to a museum can teach you a lot about God. I've heard the artwork is fascinating to look at. Art is an expression of God through people. I pondered his argument, but those artists probably weren't members of the Worldwide Church of God. Probably, you're right, but I've really wanted to take you there so we can see it together. I think we need to expand our horizons, learn about new things so we can be more grounded in our beliefs. I'd really like to take you. I thought Les might have a good argument, and he was extremely charming. I could hardly resist the thought of not going with him, so I compromised my beliefs and decided to take a chance. We arrived at the museum hand in hand. I'd never been to a museum in my life, so I was quite curious. It was thrilling being with and getting to know this handsome, interesting friend, but I really felt guilty about not being in church. Les picked up on how uncomfortable I was, so he encouraged me. Grace, we don't have to do this. If you'd rather go to church, it's okay. But I think we'll learn a lot by seeing the exhibits inside. They'll be inspiring, just like we get inspired when we go to church. I hesitated and then blurted out, trying to please him and God at the same time. No, it's okay. I've decided to give it a try. But listen, I'm not the kind of girl who skips out on church ever unless I'm sick. so don't ask me to do something like this again." Enough said. Les paid my admission fee, and we entered the galleries. There were collections of Asian, American, contemporary, and modern art. Various sculptures of naked men and women were strategically placed. We skipped over the statues pretty quickly because they were way too provocative for us as a young couple. Then we entered the European art gallery, and my interest soared to a whole new level. I had never seen a Rembrandt or a Van Gogh, both Dutch artists. I felt a connection to the paintings, since we shared the same ancestry. Next, we came upon a set of oil pastels, about 6 feet tall by 3 feet wide, of Adam and Eve by the German artist Lucas Cranach the Elder, or Cranach, I don't know how to pronounce it. Both Adam and Eve were naked, except for fig leaves covering their private parts. I saw the snake hanging from the tree above Eve's head, and the apple in her hand. Les and I stood by the panels for a long time, talking about the creation story in Genesis, what it meant to both of us, and how we wished Adam and Eve had not disobeyed God. Suddenly, I felt liberated from my guilt. I turned to Les and smiled into his eyes. "Thank you for asking me to go here with you. I know I really felt guilty about missing church, but standing here in front of these panels with you and talking about Adam and Eve right now feels just as good as listening to a sermon. It's kind of brought Genesis to life for me. I'm sorry I hesitated so much." A look of triumph spread across his face as our eyes met. "That's okay, Grace. I thought we'd enjoy this. But for the future, I want you to know that I respect your principles. And I don't like missing church either, but I think this was good for us to try." We continued to date, and the bond between us grew deeper. Les really enjoyed showing me around Pasadena. There were so many sights to see. It was thrilling for him to take this sheltered farm girl and expand her sphere of vision. He took me to Santa Monica and Venice beaches. Marina del Rey became a favorite go-to spot. Les said it reminded him of the waterfront in his hometown of Beaufort, North Carolina. When he found out how much I liked flowers, he took me to Huntington Gardens, a sprawling arboretum with the most fascinating desert garden in the world. There were orange groves, tiny bonsai art exhibits, and breathtaking Japanese gardens. We also worked together at the Rose Parade concessions for a student fundraiser. Every time we were together, our friendship and interest in each other grew deeper. Wrigley Mansion sat kitty corner to the campus, and we enjoyed walking through the manicured rose gardens and sitting on the huge roots of the elephant tree next to the mansion studying for class. Some sections of the roots made natural benches where people could sit comfortably. A major part of the root system of this kind of tree was above the ground. One Saturday morning before church, Les asked me to join him for a walk to the Gamble House, just a few blocks northwest of campus. This house, owned by David and Mary Gamble of Procter & Gamble, is a National Historic Landmark of the American arts and crafts architectural style. The backyard had some quiet benches amidst well-designed landscapes and man-made waterfalls. Flowers adorned the walkways. Butterflies sipped nectar from sweet blossoms. The sun was bright, the air exhilarating and fresh. No one else was visiting the landmark, so we relished having the place to ourselves. Les's mood was the total opposite of the atmosphere we found ourselves together in. He became more and more agitated as he thought and shared with me about one of his recent classes in theology. They were studying about the mark of the beast as discussed in the book of Revelation, the last book of the Bible. We talked about the impending Great Tribulation and World War III, which the church prophesied was coming soon. Les had registered for the draft and was processing what he might have to face if this happened soon. He pulled out his wallet, He pulled out his wallet and removed his social security card. Upset, he waved the card in the air. Do you think I could figure out a way to remove my name from the Social Security Administration's records? I think this number is the mark of the beast, and I don't want anything to do with it. Releasing a quick breath, I reached for his arm. I don't know what to say, Les. I hope all of this doesn't happen very soon. If it does, we might not be able to be together anymore. I'd hate that. Me too. He kissed my cheek, looking deep into my eyes. You mean so much to me. Les opened the Bible he had brought along with him to the book of Revelation. Let's read these passages together. I want to understand them and talk them over with you, he said. I scooted closer to him on the bench so I could see the words. Okay, let's read. After we finished the passages, both of us still had no more practical understanding of the meaning of the text. Les gripped to the bench and sighed. Looks like there might be some scary times ahead. We had never prayed together about anything, but I felt this might be a good time to suggest doing so. Les, would you like to pray together about this? I want to ask God for his help. The agitation in his eyes shifted. I sensed a ramping down of his stress. Yes, I'd like to pray with you. Let's hold hands, bow our heads, and close our eyes. So, hand in hand, we bowed our heads and asked God for his help. Les started. Dear Father in heaven, we don't understand what the mark of the beast is. I heard some stuff about it in class, and there seems to be scary times ahead. Please help us and show us the way. He paused, waiting for me to add anything I might want to say. God, what is the mark of the beast? Give us understanding and encouragement. My heart felt full, so I finished. In Jesus' name, amen. After the prayer, it was like we both came up for air. Now we could appreciate the beauty and tranquility of the gardens around us. The flowers seemed to be speaking words of reassurance. I stood up and challenged Les. Race you back to campus. Bet I can beat you this time. In a flurry, he grabbed his Bible and we took off. I continued to sew my own clothes while attending college. It was a great hobby and creative outlet for me. We had free access to sewing machines on campus. So I took advantage of this. I could even check out one and use it in my dorm room. Les noticed my sewing skills and decided to ask me to make him a pair of swimming trunks from a piece of blue denim he had picked up somewhere. He said that he would design the pattern and cut it out of the fabric. I agreed to do the sewing. We met for the project in the Fine Arts building basement, where there was a classroom with sewing machines, large tables for laying out cloth, and other sewing accessories, all available for students to use. I watched as he laid out the cloth, drew the design freehand of the front and back pieces with chalk, and then cut them out. I was a bit worried about the fit because the back was shaped exactly the same as the front, and he did not make a seam for a fly front zipper either. But I decided maybe it could work since he said he had taken measurements. After stitching it up and hemming the legs and waist, we inserted a piece of braided rope he had into the waistband for tying. Les tried it on in the men's room, but he came out in his regular clothes. Hey, Grace, they fit fine. And now that I have some swimming trunks, do you want to go swimming at Santa Monica Beach with me this weekend? Thrilled at the prospect of more time together, I smiled. Sure, what time do you want to go? How about I pick you up at 2 p.m. on Saturday? Les winked as he headed out the door of the classroom, and my heart swooned. I joined him, and we dashed out into the smoggy Pasadena air. That'll work. I can't wait. Sunday came, and off to the beach we went. The surf wasn't too high. The sand was warm and the sun bright. Les came out of the bathhouse in his new swim trunks, and my jaw dropped. They fit really oddly and were quite tight. However, I decided not to say anything to embarrass him. We headed straight for the water, splashing and swimming around, having a great time. Shortly into the swim, Les said, "Grace, something's wrong with these swimming trunks. They are starting to feel really tight. Let's get out of the water and change our clothes. There's a swing set over there. Maybe I could push you on the swing and see how high I can get you into the air." He had a teasing look in his eyes. I was hesitant, but maybe it would be fun. "Okay, that sounds like fun, but not too high. Let's go." When Les exited the water, the trunks looked like they had shrunk 3 sizes. Suddenly, I realized that the denim had probably not been pre-shrunk. So, when he got them wet, the garment became skin tight. His physique looked great, but I began to worry about the integrity of the seams I had stitched. And there was another problem. Blue dye was running, leaching out onto his skin and dripping down his legs. I handed him his towel. "Les, I think you better change quickly. I don't want the seams to split. It looks like the fabric is shrinking more and more every second, and your legs are turning blue from the fabric dye." He wrapped himself up and went to the men's room. We spent the rest of the afternoon on the swing set and walking along the beach, collecting shells, feeding the seagulls, and enjoying the soft breeze on our skin. A rumor began to circulate near the end of my freshman year. Church leadership was discussing whether or not to continue funding Ambassador College. We heard that the curriculum might be scaled back, that the college might go from a liberal arts school to a theology curriculum only. Nothing was certain. Apparently, money was an issue. 2 weeks short of the end of the semester, a formal announcement was made. Ambassador College will officially end all of its liberal arts classes at the end of the school year. We may completely shut down the institution altogether, or we may reopen in the fall, offering a theology major only. Students will be informed as soon as administrative directors have a decision. Les asked me out to dinner at the Spanish Inn that night. We talked about our future over bean burritos, chips, and salsa. "Grace, I'm not sure what to do. If the college offers theology in the fall, I'll probably come back. But things are really up in the air, aren't they? I wish they weren't. I guess I'll just have to work through the summer and see what happens. What about you?" I dipped a chip into some salsa and held it in my hand as I thought about what to say next. I was accepted to work in Orr, Minnesota for the summer at the church youth camp. My job will be working in the dining hall and kitchen, helping the chefs, cooking, serving, and cleaning up. I think this will be a good experience for me. I've never been to Orr, and it sounds like a ton of fun to be part of a summer camp program. I took a bite and thought about what to say next, not wanting us to go our separate ways in the summer. Then I formulated what to say next. "It looks like we may be heading in different directions this summer unless we make some plans. Would you want to get a job in Orr too?" He tenderly touched my hand. He reached for my hand. "I've been offered a job in Canada," he said, "with a logging crew. Some of the guys in my dorm are considering a position on the crew too. It would be fun to do this with them, and I can earn more money this way. In fact, it sounds like I could make really good money. Let's just plan to write each other and keep in touch over the summer. Maybe I can visit you while you are in Orr. But I'll miss you." Now I was fighting back tears. "I'll miss you too, but I guess if we write each other, that'll be okay," I said in a whispered tone, my heart sinking. Les could tell I was upset, so he reached for my hand again. "Grace, I'll miss you too. This is not a breakup, if you were thinking it might be. Really, it'll be okay. Logging is supposed to pay really good wages, and I need the money. So when we see each other again, I'll be able to spend more money on doing fun things with you. Besides, Now there was a twinkle in his eye as he leaned closer to my side of the booth. If we miss each other enough, then we might want to start making some more permanent plans. What do you think? Okay, was all I could think of saying. The lump in my throat felt too hard to swallow down. I didn't want to say goodbye, especially now that Les had made his thoughts about me so much clearer. We sat in silence, eating our meal for a while. After I regained my composure, I looked up to see Les's face. His mouth was turned up in a big smile. Grace, I can see you really care a lot about me. Don't worry. I'll try to come visit you in Orr. You mean so much to me, too, and I will stay in touch. After classes ended, we said goodbye to each other. It was hard for both of us. I flew home to my family farm for a few weeks and then flew on to Orr when camp opened for its first session of the summer. Les and his two best buddies from college, Kevin and Walter, headed to Saskatchewan by car to fell trees with a logging crew. The youth camp in Orr was for teens in the church. Enrollment for students was for 2 weeks at a time, and there were 6 two-week sessions. Archery, swimming, canoeing, orienteering, various sports, and arts and crafts were some of the activities taught. There was also a daily time of Bible reading and instruction. Counselors were assigned to each residence where the students slept. Since my parents didn't have the money to send any of their children to camp, I was really excited to be able to go, even though I would be an employee, not a camper. Several weeks after I began working at Orr, a letter came from Les announcing that he was going to stop by the camp to see me on his way back home to North Carolina. He had decided that the logging job wasn't working out.